Last week, Bangladesh's capital Dhaka witnessed clashes between activists of the country's largest opposition party, the BNP, and the police. One party worker was killed and many others were injured in the clashes. Several Western governments and even United Nations have expressed concerns over the violence. There have been repeated protests in Bangladesh recent months over power cuts and fuel price hikes, and now there are demands for a fresh election.
Bangladesh is in political turmoil. Wednesday saw violent clashes between supporters of the country's largest opposition party, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, and the police. One party worker was killed and dozens of others wounded as the police used rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse the protesters who had gathered in front of the BNP's central office in the capital Dhaka. The security forces then stormed the party headquarters. The BNP was preparing for a massive rally scheduled for the 10th of December when the violence broke out. The two top BNP leaders were arrested following the clashes. The party says thousands of its workers and supporters were detained by the police in a bid to scuttle the rally. But none of that deterred party workers as tens of thousands of them descended on Dhaka on Saturday to protest against the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and demand fresh elections. And in an attempt to pressurize the government, all 7 BNP members of parliament resigned the same day.
I come from Chittagong along with a huge number of our supporters to join the rally to protest against the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. She and her government are torturing our supporters all over the country, and today thousands of us have gathered here against her. I believe her autocratic government will fall very soon.
Recent months have witnessed repeated protests across Bangladesh against massive power cuts, soaring fuel prices and rising cost of living. The demonstrators blame Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for the crisis and are demanding that she step down to pave way for new elections under a caretaker government. Hasina and her ruling party, the Awami League, have rejected the opposition's demand, saying a caretaker government goes against the spirit of the country's constitution. General elections are not due in Bangladesh until the end of 2023. The Awami League returned to power in 2018 for the third consecutive time. The opposition has accused them of capturing power through vote rigging and intimidation. At least 15 Western governments and the United Nations have expressed concern over the political climate in Bangladesh. They issued a joint statement last week calling for the government to allow peaceful protests and free and fair elections. Amnesty International condemned Wednesday's violence, saying it showed the authorities had little regard for the sanctity of human life, and that it was meant to send a chilling message to the protesters. The White House has called on the government of Bangladesh to fully investigate the violence and respect the right of the citizens to protest peacefully without the threat of intimidation. Politics in Bangladesh has been deeply polarized for decades, with Sheikh Hasina and her arch-rival Khaleda Zia being the most dominant political figures in a country which, despite being a parliamentary democracy, has a violent history of coups and counter-coups.